All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Brew with Matt and Mike. And I didn't figure out what episode this was, but Mike, I know that was my
Yeah,
homework. That was my homework,
you
but I,
had
I
one
realized just when
job.
I started this, I did look it up. But Mike, how are you doing? How's your weekend going?
Weekend is good. Just moved into a new apartment. Just stepped back into my house after doing an interview down here in Puerto Rico for the local news stations down here. Yeah, talking about playing for the national team down here for 3x3 and getting some eyes and some ears and hopefully some sponsorship money for our upcoming expedition down to Mexico in about a week and a half.
Big detail you just left out that we just talked about off camera was the interview was in Spanish. Want to talk about that a little bit more?
Sure, yeah. I've lived here in Puerto Rico for 5 years now, close to 5 years. I dated a Puerto Rican woman for a while, and the language down here is Spanish. You can get by with English, especially in tourist area, but the language down here is Spanish. And last year, when I became a native in the league, I thought, you know what, it's pretty important for me to show some real respect for the culture that I'm living in and learn this language. It also just makes my life that much easier. Not having to worry about, oh, I don't really know what they said or I can't really respond. So yeah, I went to school. I went to language school for like 3 months straight. I still got to go back. I need to make a little bit more money to do that, but it's definitely improved my quality of life down here and definitely improved my relationship with the people of Puerto Rico too. They definitely have a very they're much nicer. It's very funny. You just see people that are like when you're around and you're like, oh, they see me. I'm clearly a giant gringo. Clearly, it's like, oh, who is that? Boromir? Is that John Smith? Who is that? And so it just kind of you can see people when I come and say, start speaking in Spanish with them. Their shoulders relax. They're a little bit more open. And life is just much easier for them too. So very important for me to learn that, and still got to get better at it. But definitely conversational. Definitely can handle a in-person interview in a studio. So worked out very well for me.
No, that's really cool. And a little roadmap for today's episode. We're going to go bold predictions based off what we've seen and what we expect after 3 games. I think the first one that we'll start with is Wisconsin Badger basketball. Who do you think is going to make the biggest jump from last season to this season? And basically, it's either a Nolan Winter or John Blackwell question because everyone else is pretty much new.
Um, for me, I think we've kind of already seen a big jump from John Blackwell in terms of scoring. From his freshman to his sophomore year. He was averaging close to 13 or 14 points a game, and um, I think what I'm really seeing early is the jump in the rebounding ability of Nolan Winter. He has looked very, very aggressive on the glass, and he kind of knows that moving from that power forward position more to that center position, which he's had to be. But for me, I think the biggest jump is going to come from Nolan Winter. It just is always something that happens with big guys. There's a couple things that happen. Every inch you get over 6'7", usually the little bit stranger you get, just because you kind of live in this really interesting fishbowl of like 6'7" is kind of the cutoff. People are like, man, you're tall, but then you're 6'10", 6'11". It's like, oh wow, you're a giant human. My
Mm-hmm.
goodness. And on top of that, with that giantism comes some need for your body to catch up. And you can see that Nolan Winter's fluidity is kind of catching up, especially since he's put on some extra weight. Seeing him now in these last couple of games compared to even the preseason games, the red white scrimmage, very specifically that Oklahoma game, he looks a lot more fluid and a lot more comfortable moving around in that weight. So for me, the biggest jump is going to definitely be Nolan Winter. I think we're just going to get a more polished and refined John Blackwell, but he gave us the goods last year.
Yeah, I agree. John Blackwell, grown man ish, so he was pretty developed last year, and Nolan Winter is still growing into his body. So I think, especially statistically, even though I think Blackwell has potential, especially if he keeps shooting the way he has through only 3 games, but I think Blackwell could potentially be a lot better and make a big jump that I didn't really anticipate him making. But you look at by the end of the year statistically, I think Nolan Winter's going to make the much bigger jump just because his role has expanded so much. And then the next question is, who is the most reliable bucket on this team?
Ooh, um, and reliable in terms of it's pretty interesting you ask that. Depends on kind of the situation. For me, the most reliable guy in transition has definitely been Boyd. You can just see the pressure he puts on the rim, the pressure he puts on defenses getting to the rim. Also, he's turned into a little free throw merchant himself. He's getting to the free throw line often, which is great to see. Um, but in terms of hey, it's kind of crunch time. We're going to need a tough bucket. And it's so funny because everybody talks about statistically the lost art of the mid-range jumper and how that is just not a higher quality shot. Tell you what, when it gets down to crunch time and you're having a hard time getting to the rim, you're having a hard time getting clean looks from three. That John Blackwell's got a really nice mid-range game that is just really tough to stop. He's got kind of a transition fade, if you don't know what that is, where you kind of skip into it into the middle of the lane, right, left, and push off your right foot. And fade into it, that he's really, really fluid with, and he gets to, he's hit a few tough mid ranges out of spin moves. So for me, that most reliable bucket is definitely going to be John Blackwell, just because his ability to score at three levels, and really that mid range level is where it's like, ooh, we need a bucket, and he can go get us something that's a little bit more awkward in that in between stage, and he's got that down.
So would you just say that would translate into the next one was who's the guy? And I would say it's Blackwell. Who would you say the guy is Blackwell?
To be honest with you, like in terms of the guy of like who's the alpha on the team.
Who's the alpha? Who's getting the ball? Who do you want? Who's getting the ball? I feel like it's Blackwell. There's 10 seconds left in the game. It's a tie game. Down one. You're getting the ball to Blackwell.
I am going to go ahead and say it's matchup driven. I think it's great. Coach Gard has picked this up, and he's spoken about it quite often. He's got two alphas on the team. He's got two ball dominant guys that want the ball when the going gets tough. And honestly, I think it's going to be a combination of who's got it rolling at the time, as well as matchup wise. What's going on matchup wise, especially if it's like, hey, 10 seconds left, we're coming out of a set, and we want to get a specific set shot, a jumper or anything like that coming off of actions. I really like John Blackwell coming off and getting more off-ball action, not necessarily being the main guy, either like off-ball or isolation action. And then, if we're like, hey, it's semi-transition and, there's 10 seconds left and there wasn't a timeout called and they're, down by one, I really like the ball in the hands of Nick Boyd, coming downhill and being aggressive and finding a way to either get fouled or get to the rim or put so much pressure and collapse that defense that he'll be able to make a play out of it. So I think it's going to be really situationally determined. But in terms of, hey, it's 10 seconds left and we need to drop a play for somebody, I really like having the ball in Blackwell's hands. And then, a little bit of off color. I actually think Andrew Rohde is going to be a big piece for them. I think he's actually going to hit some big shots for them down the stretch. He was a guy who averaged 17 at a Division I program, and averaged 9 at a high major Division I program. So he's a guy that has seen it. He's really steady, especially out of his pick and roll. I've talked about that quite often. So I think he's going to be a guy who gets them a lot of late buckets because Blackwell and Boyd draw so much pressure. It's just kind of like, okay, we're going to collapse on him. And then all of a sudden, look who's sitting in the corner butt naked, Andrew Rohde.
So, okay, and this one I don't know who I even think, but who do you think will be the MVP defensively for this team?
I personally believe it'll probably be between. To be honest with you, I think it's going to be between Janicki, Rohde, possibly Carrington. That wing spot is really where I'm looking to see who can really solidify themselves as a lockdown defender. We've already seen Janicki be really, really active, kind of come in and just be a spark plug, change the game, change the pace, being really lanky, being really active in passing lanes. And I think Braden Carrington can bring that kind of same role. And then defensively, I really believe, and I think we've talked about offensively how Nolan Winter needs to step up and be a big offensive piece. For him to really make a jump and for him to really consider himself, being a lottery pick, it's being able to switch on pick and rolls, but also just being a rim defender. The last 3 games, obviously the competition hasn't been as high level as you'd like it to be, or as not as you'd like to be, but as it will be going
Yeah.
forward. But the Badgers have done a great job protecting the rim, and I think Blauskitz has done great. Rapp has done great. But if Nolan Winter can become a above average rim defender, man, he'll go ahead and be that defensive MVP because he's been able to wall up and he's so lanky. He does have the frame to do it, and I'm looking for him to be that defensive MVP. And if he is, those Badgers are going to be tough.
Then the next one, player Wisconsin can't afford to lose. Because, and I imagine it's going to be, it's like 1A, 1B, 1C, but if there's one person you had to pick.
Yeah, I mean, like we see that they got their three-headed monster, right? You got their three-headed monster, and for me, it's Nolan Winter in the front court, just because it's not that the front court is thin, in terms of we got guys that are coming in, you got younger guys that are stepping up, Godlock and Belauskis and Rapp
Rap.
all can come in and definitely give you really good minutes, but they're younger, right? They're not as experienced. They haven't been through the wars that Winter's been through so far. And I watched the end of the Alabama versus Purdue game, and man, Purdue's got some really good bigs over there. So I think the biggest one is if you have Blackwell go down or Boyd go down, it makes things a little bit more difficult, but. Winter going down really thins out that front line a lot. For me, he's like their most invaluable piece. He's the guy that's going to kind of hold everything together for them just because of the experience that he has.
The experience and he can do things that the other guys can't. Rapp,
Yeah.
Belauskis, and Garlock, they're all solid in their own ways, but Winter, the way he can run the floor, his athleticism, his experience, no one can come really close to replicating. The other guys will be solid, but Winter just is a difference maker. So
Yep.
as you talked about that, I didn't really know which guy I would go with, but I would go with Nolan Winter if I had to just pick one. And then, what do you think the biggest question mark is with this team moving forward?
I to be honest with you, it's going to be some shooting. How well the others can shoot the ball. And I think it's going to be, how well the others can shoot the ball, how well Nick Boyd shoots the ball, especially playing off of pick and rolls. And for me, the biggest, um, the biggest concerns for them are also just it's going to be interesting to see how they handle this uptick in competition level. We've seen them do well against guys that are smaller than them and everything like that, but and really the only one we've really seen where the competition was really at their level was in Oklahoma. Obviously, it's a preseason game. That team looks night and day different than they did 3 weeks ago, and you're going to see that in college basketball, guys. Teams, especially in preseason, younger teams, first time being under the bright lights. It was in Pfizer Forum, which is a big NBA arena. It was even though it's a preseason game, it's still a big time game. You're still going to get butterflies playing against another Big Ten opponent or big time Power Five conference opponent.
Yeah.
So it's going to see, and especially for me, it's those others. I think they got the three-headed monster down. It's Winter, it's Boyd, it's Blackwell, and it's okay. How well can Rohde and Janicki shoot the ball coming off the bench, and Braden Carrington? How well can those guys defend those high major guards? And then it's, hey, how does that rotation of those younger bigs between Rapp, Belauskis, and Garlock, how do they look? How are they looking against the competition that they're about to see? And we're going to find out really, really soon, which I'm really excited about. That's one of the funnest things about college basketball is you can see guys grow within the season, and we'll see how those guys do it.
Last one I think I got is who do you think has the most NBA upside on this roster?
I mean, it's obviously, Nolan Winter's got that big upside for him in terms of, just what, the NBA is really looking for, right? Like, everybody went small ball and, hey, we got to have undersized centers. And then all of a sudden it went to, hey, we got to have undersized centers to, if you look at the league, it's a bunch of giant humans running around who can do a lot of different things. And that's kind of what Nolan Winter is. He got that genetic lottery. He is the supermodel in the room right now in terms of just physically what he has capable of doing. And so for me, that's one of the guys that I'm going to see, and everybody's kind of been talking about it, and it's just it's just one of those facts of, hey, he won the genetic lottery. He's not only in the hotel room or in the same hotel building as everybody else, but he's in the same floor as those NBA guys in terms of what his body can do, how he can athletically move around, the wingspan, his vertical jump, all that stuff. So, for him, that's the biggest one that, we could see clearly right now. And I'm going to go with also a sleeper for you is Hayden Jones.
Oh wow.
So it's really hard to see kind of, Hayden Jones is getting some minutes right now, and we haven't, I'm not personally at practice. I live in an island. It's warm down here. I'm not trying to go do that. But Hayden Jones is, he's a 6'6" point guard. And if you look at what the league is looking for, it's looking for 6'6" point guards. Tyrese Halliburton is one that comes to mind that is really like, hey, he's a bigger point guard, a point guard with size who can handle it. So for me, Hayden Jones is really young. He's got that international flavor coming from New Zealand. So, for me, I think in terms of the guy that you will maybe be able to see enter into the draft process, maybe a year or two early is Hayden Jones. I don't think it'll be, I don't think he's going to wow anybody this year. I don't think he's ready for that, but I do believe that he's going to actually have a really big sophomore jump if he decides to stay at Wisconsin, which, I actually hope he does. I think he shows a lot of potential. He's, like I said, he's young right now, but he's making some, younger point guard mistakes, but playing the point guard position is not easy. And if he can do it, if he's showing spurts and he's earning the trust of Coach Gard right now, especially coming off the bench for him at an early age, that just kind of tells me like, oh yeah, he's got a chance. So yeah, that's my answer. I think Hayden Jones is my little sleeper pick for you. But I think that should be good for us today. I know you got to go do a couple things. I was a little bit late, rain and all kinds of fun stuff doing interviews in Spanish. But if anybody's interested in anything any questions you guys would like to ask us, please hit the group, hit the chat below, as well as subscribe to the channel. We appreciate all that, and we'll see you guys. I think they play. When's the Badgers' next game? They play
Monday night. So
Monday night.
So get out next episode Tuesday.
Yeah, we'll see. Me and Matt will hang out. We get to hang out again on Tuesday. Let's go.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
get to hang out with us on the Brew on Tuesday. So appreciate you guys and have a good rest of your night.
Yeah, we'll see you soon.